right, what's going on? I'm here with a very, very special person to me and to the photography community and to the entire world. I'm here with the great Arnold Turner. Welcome to the Respect the Shooter show, and I'm truly honored to have you sitting here today for this special one-on-one. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's an honor to be here with you, absolutely. And I know that this is special because, you know, I've only done a couple of interviews and this is, I think, like my second one. So this feels really good and I'm really proud that you're doing this. Respect the Shooter program is, I know it's going to be amazing in years to come.
Thank you, man. Okay, get it started. Let's start at the beginning with you, Arnold. Where does it start for you with photography?
It starts for me when I was very young, junior high school, living in Spain. My sister used to work on movie productions, and she used to take me on set on the weekends with her. And after the second time, you know, being on set with her, there really wasn't much for me to do, so she put a camera in my hand and she said, take a picture of that person, take a picture of that person, take a picture of that person. And those people happen to be key stars that were in the movie. So.
Did you know them?
So I know them now, absolutely. So, you know, when I was a little kid, I was shooting Jim Brown, I was shooting Clint Eastwood, Omar Sharif. You know, I would go on sets with her. And, you know, so I was, I started shooting celebrities. Even though as a kid, I did not know who they were. I was just following instructions. But she put the camera in my hand, and that gave me the interest in photography. So I used to shoot personal things when I was a kid. And then when I say I lived in Spain for several years, but I was, raised in the United States. So when I came back home, I was at the age to go to high school. So in high school, I worked on the yearbook staff. So that, continued my interest in photography. So I did photography through high school and then my first 2 years in college at Northeastern.
How was living in Spain as a kid?
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was great. It taught me a lot. I learned a lot, learned an awful lot about life, about culture, of course the language. I still speak fluent Spanish today, and living here in California, comes in very handy. So, I feel that my years in Spain were phenomenal. I treasure them to this day.
So, when did you come to California?
Came to California in the mid '80s, and in the middle of the birth of hip hop, West Coast hip hop, music industry, R&B scene was growing, and so that's kind of like I picked up. I was a retailer. I used to work at a record store. We had several stores, but the three main stores were Warehouse Records, Music Plus, and Tower Records. And I had applied at Tower Records, but the job didn't come through. Then I applied at Warehouse Records, and I got hired, and I was trained right away to the management program. So I started, so when I came out of Warehouse Records Management School, I went right to a store as an assistant manager. And then in about 3 months, I had my own store, which was Warehouse Records at the Fox Hills Mall.
Okay.
So that gave me the kind of like the really introduction into the music industry, because a lot of the record labels would come through the store to make sure that their records were available for the consumer to purchase. And as a store manager, you got little perks. They would bring you promotional copy items and things like that. And, we used to get invited to parties. So photography was a hobby, so was DJing. A lot of people don't know, but I used to DJ back in the day in high school.
Wait, what was your DJ name?
Disco Kid.
Disco Kid. Okay.
Came out of the disco era. So
all right.
I was a disco kid, late 70s into the 80s. So, so to make so as a store manager, as I was saying, you have you know, you get a little perks. Like I said, the record companies would bring you promotional items and things like that, and we would get invited to listening parties when a new artist was coming out or an established artist was coming out. You know, the record companies would have an event for them.
So who did you meet back then?
Well, back then, I met everybody that was happening back then. So, you know, let's just say Bill Withers, Sister Sledge, Luther Vandross, Vanessa Williams when she was a recording artist before she became a TV and movie star. You know, everybody, the Barcades, the Gap Band. You know, LA was central for entertainment. You know, we had, you know, anybody that was coming out at that time, you know, NWA. Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet a lot of people, but then later on I had the opportunity to work with a lot of them, yes.
Okay, so how did that transition from the record store into photography?
Well, from the record store, as a store manager, like I said, we used to get invited to listening parties and things like that. So basically, A&M Records hosted a listening party for Janet Jackson for her second album. It was called Dream Street, and it was produced by producer Jesse Johnson at the time out of the Prince camp or the Time camp. And they had a listening party for us, so we were invited. I was invited as a manager, and then a couple of the staff members were invited as well. So we all went to Janet's listening party. It was held at A&M Record Studios, which at the time was on La Brea and Sunset, and very prominent space in that era. So I took my camera to the party, and I happened to take a couple of pictures of Janet and, you know, some of the A&M record executives and my store staff. So, you know, it was just really candid, you know, casual. I just happened to just take my camera. I figured we were going to a Janet Jackson listening party. You know, she was a little girl at the time, and I said, well, we got to get some pictures of Janet. She was a major star on TV on Good Times. So anyway, to make a long story longer,
I want the long story today.
Story,
only today. Only today.
The long story was, well, I took some pictures at the party, didn't think anything of it. A couple of days later, I said, oh yeah, by the way, we took some pictures at the Janet Jackson party. So the staff members were asking, where are the pictures with Janet? So at the Fox Hills Mall, which is now Westfield Mall, Culver City, there used to be a 1-hour photo place, like literally like right across from us. So I took the film, took it to the 1-hour photo place, and they developed the pictures, and the pictures came back really good. Like, wow, you know, we were with Janet, da 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 da. So one of the record executives from A&M came by the store, and I had taken all the pictures and put them up behind the cash register so customers could see that we were at this party with Janet. So all the pictures were taped on the wall, and the record executive came by, and actually was a real good friend of mine at the time, Rich Calloway, and he said, oh my God, we need these pictures because we had a photographer at the party, and you know, a lot of his pictures didn't come out. Something was wrong with his camera. So the pictures that I had was, you know, really good, so he took them to A&M Publicity. A&M Publicity called me right away, says, hey, we need these. What do we have to do? Can we buy them from you? So they made me an offer, and that was my first gig in the music industry as a photographer. And then, so those pictures from A&M with Janet ran in the music trades, and the music trades was a big deal back then. Billboard magazine, Black Radio Exclusive, Radio and Records were major music industry chart magazines that a lot of the record executives participated in, a lot of the record companies, because their artists, their charts, the numbers, you know, what was a hit, what wasn't a hit, all that's a big deal. So those pictures ran in the trades, so all the other, not all, but a lot of the other record executives saw that those pictures ran in the trade, and they saw my photo credit, and they were like, well, we didn't know that you did photography, we thought you were just a store manager. And from that day, several executives at that time started hiring me to do pictures for their artists when they would take them on a promotional tour throughout Los Angeles. And we had, we had 4 major radio stations that played R&B, hip hop music. And so, Los Angeles was a primary market for a lot of artists. And so a lot of those artists would stop by the radio station to promote their new song, or if they had an existing song and they happened to be in the area, they would always go by the radio station. And so it was protocol at that time to document those moments, because the program director, the morning DJ, the afternoon DJ, they were very prominent in the city, and all those pictures were important to run in the trades. So we always documented key moments at radio stations with.
So at what point did you leave the record store?
The record store, I left.
Or what made you leave the record store?
Well, it was a little bit of a conflict, but what happened was in 1986, 87, around that time, my mother got sick, and it was right around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, and the store, the company that I was working for had a policy that store managers could not take vacation during that time, because those are peak selling points between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And but anyway, my mother was really sick. She was kind of on her deathbed, so I had to leave and go take care of her. So anyway, after that, I came back to LA, and I picked up the phone and called a couple of people, and I told them I was back in Los Angeles and I'm just going to pursue photography full time, because I think I had established really good connections, and here we are, a couple of 20-something years later, 30 years later.
It sounds crazy when you say it like that. I know, like 5, 10, 15, that's a long time to do anything.
Do anything.
You're a staple in the community, especially from our eyes, and once you decided to pursue it full time, what started happening? Like, how did you get to like Getty Images and all this other different type of organizations?
Well, right at the end of the 80s, we jumped right into the 90s, and the 90s was a huge, in my eyes, the 90s was a huge era of music. So was the 70s and so was the 80s. But for my business, for photography and documenting artists as they move around to the city or even to other cities, because a lot of times we would travel to other cities. I would travel to other cities. Other photographers would travel to other cities. But there was a lot going on in R&B, hip hop, even in rock. Even in rock and jazz, there was a lot going on, and there was projects going on all the time. So I had established a professional reputation as a good photographer, and at the same time to be able to deliver. You had to be able to deliver good pictures and turn them around in a reasonable time. At that time, we could, deliver a picture within 3 or 4 days, 5 days, not in 3 hours as we do now in the digital age. So a lot of things, definitely the game has changed on how to deliver for a client. But like I said, there was a lot of stuff going on in the 90s, and I covered a lot in the 90s era.
Okay, all right. So yeah, before we get to like the digital mediums, like who was the first person you went on tour with?
I didn't really do artist tours. I only did what I would call local. So say for example, if they came to LA and they went to San Diego, then I would follow them. So I would go with them. So say for example, Color Me Bad, or Boy George, came into did LA and then went to San Diego, then I would follow the artist on behalf of Columbia Records, or whatever record label I was. If they went to San Bernardino, then I would do things like that. But I turned down tours because it required you to be gone for several weeks, several months, and I had a lot of business going on locally. So to leave and to be gone for a month and then try to come back and reconnect, it was difficult. And it's the same thing with, I got offered to shoot sports, like to shoot the Lakers and stuff like that. So I would only shoot Laker games occasionally, and most of the time it would be because there was an artist going to the game and things like that. But to shoot sports, it requires you to be gone a long time, and I was developing my business with record companies and production companies. Soul Train would tape every week. A lot of artists would go to Soul Train all the time and tape, and we would go to Soul Train with them, and different shows, different music shows. Back in the day, there would be the Box, a video cable show, even though it was all videos. But a lot of times, the artists would go there to do interviews, and they would play their interviews in between music videos, as people paid to view music videos.
Yeah.
So there was a lot going on, and so it was hard to leave the area. But then they had they had big music conventions, and then everybody would go there. So then that was the place to go to. You go to the music convention, all the labels were there, the artists were there. So if you're going to be gone for 3 or 4 days, that was the place to go.
Very interesting. So, was it ever a concern of yours that how did you choose the people who developed your photos? Because I would imagine back then that was a sensitive thing to not have people taking your negatives and copying them and all that different type of stuff. Like, how did you manage that?
Well, Los Angeles Los Angeles has still and had at the time several labs that were very reputable, and they would, we use, like most of the music industry photographers would use this one lab called Richard's Photo Lab. And Richard's Photo Lab would develop our files, they would keep them on hand, and then we had a system where we would, once the images were developed, we would develop them on proof sheets, contact sheets, which had all 36 images on a sheet, which technically, back in the day, a roll of film was either 24 or 36. You can get 36 images or 24 out of a roll of film. So we would develop in the contact sheets. So we had a system where we develop them the next day, the proof sheets would come out, they would be overnighted to the record company. If the record company was based out of New York, they'd be overnighted to the record company. If they were based here in LA, by 3 o'clock, the record company could send a messenger and have the proof sheets picked up, and they would be delivered to the correspondent office. And but we had a really good system. Richard's Photo Lab was the king, and literally across the street from Richard's Photo Lab, there was another lab that was a color lab, and they would develop the color slides. Color slides could be developed in an hour. Color negative, it took about 3 to 4 hours to develop a roll of color negative.
So what did you do with all that stuff? Just kept it, put it up?
Yeah, it's filed away right now.
All
but
right.
It's coming back though. A lot of people are requesting their history. So it's almost like I'm working again with the original files. So, yeah, so that's a beautiful thing right now.
I bet you it is. What was the money like back then?
The money, to be honest with you, in photography, it's pretty much, the same. It was probably because of the frequency of events. You made a really good living. All the photographers that I know that worked in the music industry made a really good living because they were, you were working every day. Sometimes you were working 2 or 3 times a day, based on different things that were taking place. You could be at a radio station at 6 in the morning. You could be at a lunch at 12 o'clock, and then you can be at a live show or a listening party at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. So there would be a lot of things. So the frequency gave you an opportunity to make a good living. But at the end of the day, I always tell photographers that even though they give you the brand as being a freelancer, just always know you're not free. You know, freelance is just a term, meaning this is what you do, but you are not free. Photography costs money, your time costs money, your expenses, your equipment costs money, so you have to charge a fee, even though you may be freelance, but you have to charge a fee. But being a freelance photographer gives you the opportunity to designate what your rate is. So you can be flexible to a point, but you also have to have a standard rate that just kind of stays competitive, as we say.
How was the transition from film to digital?
Well, the transition for me, I was one of the last ones to go digital. I didn't go digital, I think, until 2002. I think it's kind of like when my digital files start. Whereas a lot of some of the other photographers, they were digital, 1999, 2000, 2001. Kodak had, had like a camera, and then Canon really started to come into the digital game, and then Nikon came in right after that. But yeah, I didn't go digital until 2002. I was one of the last ones.
Why?
Because at the end of the day, not at the end of the day, but my system was delivering prints to a client, making sure that they had an image that they could see. So I was in the printing business, and also I was making good money prints, because even though you charge for your time, that's one fee, but if they order prints, then that's another fee, especially if they order several prints. And at that time, it was customary for them to order several prints because they were sending pictures out to various trades. So you wanted to make sure that you were so literally until the cameras got reasonably good, 2002, that's when they were really starting to come in. The pixelization was, it would match a regular print at a 5x7 or an 8x10. The prints were very compatible. So that's where the industry was going. So that's where I decided, let's go digital, and here we are.
So what type of setup do you run these days with the camera?
Today we're all digital, all online. Everything is digital. The setup is shoot for a client, deliver an online link so they can view. I still always offer that if they want prints, then it is additional, but the online link gives them an idea of everything that took place. You can see everything on your computer, and that's the way it is right now. Yeah.
What type of camera you use?
I use Canons. I've 35 years. I've been a Canon user. Right now, I'm using the Canon 6D as my main baby. I'm probably going to play around with some of the mirrorless cameras. I'm looking at the R series, R5, R6, but I'm still waiting on the mirrorless.
Why? Me too. But why Canon?
Canon, their lenses have always been really, really good, and and it's kind of like one of those things when you fall into a system. I fell into the Canon system, and I was shooting Canon cameras with film, so I was just used to the Canon system.
Okay. So in this digital age, how do you protect your intellectual property?
Whew. It's a lot. It depends on what your agreement is with the client you shoot for. So, but anyway, most things. Most of the time, it depends on, like I said, where you're shooting and how you're shooting. If you're shooting in a freelance space and you're on a red carpet and you take pictures, then basically the photographer owns the right to those photos to a limited extent. So The best thing to do if you feel that you have an image and you're worried about intellectual property about that particular image, the best thing to do is to get that particular photograph or that series of photographs copywritten. And you would just basically open up an account at the Copyright Office. Everything is all online. You take your photos, to the Copyright Office. You upload them to their site. You digitize them, upload them, register them, and then you're protected. That's the best way.
Have you had people steal your photos?
Steal my photos online? Right now in social media, everybody's stealing. Everybody's stealing, which is sad. And I think like everything, anything that becomes abusive, I believe that probably some things are probably going to be done about it in the next couple of years. I feel that the younger generation that's coming in that is involved in social media haven't experienced the snatching and the copyright thing. But I feel that once they realize that their images are being taken and being used on other platforms and they're not reaping a benefit from it, I feel that they're going to probably address the issue. And and I think that's probably would be a really good fight for everybody, because I think that if your image is being used, you should be paid for it, period. And if you're online, and there are online magazines that are known as an influencer magazine or influencer site, and they take a photo from something that they saw online and they didn't bother to look up who the photographer was, and they post a picture with the story, not recognizing who the photographer was, and they are reaping benefits from ad dollars and not compensating for what your visual is. I think that's like I said, I think it's going to be addressed pretty soon.
What are some of your things when you see photographer etiquette that excites you, and what are some of the things that really bother you when it comes to photographers and their etiquette?
It depends. So if you're talking about photographers being on a red carpet or at an event or something like that, and photography etiquette comes into play there, then of course you always admire professionalism when you see another photographer and they're professional, and you see them, how they speak to someone, and they speak well, and they're intelligent, and they know their camera, then that's always a good thing. I always try to compliment people when they're professional. There's bad etiquette, like, for example, we've all been in situations where a VIP comes into a situation and everybody runs to that situation to try to take a photo. But I'm always, will always be accommodating. Professionally speaking, I can say, based on my experience, because I have tenure and experience in the field, I can know when to go get a photo. And if there's 1 million people that are trying to run to get that photo, then I may let those 1 million people go get that photo at that moment. But I know that I have good relationships that I can get the photo later on. But when photographers start pushing one another and elbowing and stuff like that, then I feel that that's not proper etiquette.
And that happens a lot.
It happens a lot, especially in New York. I'm not dogging New York. I got great friends in New York, but New York photographers are very pushy.
I mean, one thing that struck you about me when I first met you, it was at Newhouse for Tammy Roman, Director X, Dame Dash. They had a TV show, and Bama Boy Buck won, and he got to direct a music video. And it didn't dawn on me because we were standing there taking pictures, and you just stepped right in front of us and took all the pictures. But then I was like, wait a minute, he walked in with them. So I guess that's probably his that's probably their photographer, so we just better chill. And the more events that I started to go to, I was like, it's different taking pictures and it's different when you actually like know them. And that's what just kind of made me just start paying more attention to like who is actually who, and like you start seeing stuff. But then I just start popping up everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm very proud of you. You've definitely taken carved a lane for yourself, or carving a lane for yourself, and that's extremely important. And knowing the talent, knowing who the client is, knowing other talent that's coming up, and those things are really important because those are the things that are going to carry you along in years to come, based on relationships and building relationships with talent and executives. Because if a new talent comes into play and an executive that you met a few years ago and they're working with a new artist, then that executive is going to come to you because they're going to want you to photograph the new artist and at the same time introduce you to. On the other point is that if you already know an existing artist, then that existing artist is going to look at you because they know that you photographed them before, and that's a good place to be. Have relationships with artists, respectful relationships, and I'm always respectful. A lot of times I'm at places and an artist or VIP or a film or TV star may not be in the mood to take a picture. They may not have the right comfortable clothes on. They may not have the right makeup, and sometimes they'll signal me and says, "Hey, no pictures tonight." I'm 100% okay with that because I know if I see them later on down the line, they're gonna give me whatever I need. So relationships are
Key.
Relationships are very important, and respecting that relationship.
Now, I know you got a lot of relationships with a lot of people that come to Los Angeles, and they even put you on planes and send you places sometimes to go take photographs. How important is it to actually be a people person versus, like, I know, like me, I'm more of an introvert. Like, how did you develop your photography style?
Your style comes along with time and experience. That's when your style comes. You have to get the experience, and you have to be at the place, and you have to be at the moment to create a style. That style may become unbeknownst to you, and it's funny because I've been told by several people that they admire the way that I work, and you never know who's watching you. And I never pay attention to somebody who's watching you, when you're in a crowded space. But later on, you're going to run into someone that says, "Hey, man, I saw you at this particular place, and just the way that you work and you flow and you captured this was, to be honest with you, was amazing to watch." So I never thought about a style, but then when you get complimented, you realize that you have a certain flow. So that flow again comes from experience, knowing what to do in any given situation, knowing how to make your camera work in any given situation. You may be in a room like this and it's lit really well, or you may be in a room that's dark, but you need to get an image. So you need to know what to do. You need to know your equipment. You need to know your camera, and at the same time have a certain protocol on how to go get that image. But like I said, you develop your style over time with experience.
You ever bombed on an assignment?
Say that one more time.
Have you ever bombed on an assignment?
Oh yeah, of course. I shot a whole convention, and same thing that happened to the photographer that was at the Janet Jackson party happened to me, where I shot 2 days at a convention, and none of my pictures came out. When I came back to LA to develop the pictures, all the pictures were blank. All the negatives were blank. and there was a defect in the camera.
So what do you do in that situation?
You got to call the client and tell them we don't have any pictures from the event.
And they're usually always mad about that, but when you have a reputation, it's like, hey, things happen.
Yeah, well, once you explain, and I had rented the equipment from Sammy's Camera, and I had Sammy's Camera write a letter saying that the equipment that I had rented was defaulted, and it had some technical issues, and that's why none of the images came out. But they went and tested the camera, and the same thing happened to them, and they, so I got a letter, and I had to send it out to the 2 labels that I was working for, and they understood that. But at the end of the day, those are moments, and moments you can't get back moments. It's like a wedding. If you miss pictures at a wedding, you can't ask them to get married again. You know what I mean? So you got to capture those. You got to capture those moments as they are.
Is there any type of photography you won't do?
Yeah, there's some things that I won't do. I won't. I tell you, I take that back. I think the camera is made to capture anything, and those things are by choice. So I will say that I've had the opportunity, when it comes to the entertainment, I've pretty much photographed everything at one time or another. Like I said, it's important to get the experience, but there's some things that I will not do again. I don't think. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
All right.
Just leave it at that.
I just want everybody to know, Arnold is real reserved, so I'm trying to get him to talk and speak, even though he don't got no problem speaking. He just don't
I don't
like.
have any problem speaking, but I think you get the drift that if you work in entertainment, there are levels to entertainment.
Correct.
There are several areas, several roads, and they all cover entertainment. And you got to pick and choose what you want to do. And all of them, all the lanes are lucrative. You can make a living at it. But I stuck to music, film, and TV. And now we have a new lane, which is a social media lane, which is, I credit several social media influencers for keeping me alive during COVID. They hired me to shoot private shoots for them, and I didn't have any corporate gigs during COVID, and but I had private friends, private clients hire me for private jobs. So social media influencers, to me right now, they're my lifesaver. And I'm sure several other photographers could probably say the same thing. Models that wanted really good content, and they couldn't really go anywhere, but they wanted beautiful pictures during a time where we were all on lockdown. The life has to continue. If you're on lockdown, you got to come over here and be locked down with me and get these pictures. So, and they paid very well, and I'm grateful.
Do you think that you came out of the pandemic better than when you went in?
Well, anytime that I'm not saying better, no, but survived, yes. Survived to make ends meet and things like that, yes. But again, that again comes to knowing what to do when there's a situation that happens. You have to be ready. You got to be prepared, because you never know what's going to happen. But if the opportunity comes where whatever happens, your camera comes into play and you can make a living at it, then you got to be ready.
That's a beautiful testament of survival, because all the photographers were, basically in the same boat. We work side by side on many a different, little things. Not to get into name dropping, but You've done some serious album covers. You've done some serious shoots, and you've done some pretty big stages. What do you think to you is your biggest moment or moments?
It's yet to come.
Okay.
It's yet to come.
What do you think some of your more memorable moments in the industry are?
You know, I always use a line that I say, because of the things that I've had the opportunity to do and work with, I tell my nieces and nephews, I says, in my industry, you can't have favorites. Like, I can't say that I have a favorite because I work with favorites. You know what I mean? I work with favorites, and so to have a favorite moment is, but I have moments that are favorites that I wasn't able to photograph, that I wasn't able to be there.
Wow.
You know, so you know, those are situations I feel like, wow, damn, I should have been there. You know, but I love, I treasure all the opportunities I've had to work in the industry, and you know, doing it for 25 plus years, you get to see a lot, and you get to treasure a lot. So,
What are some of your goals that you still have in photography?
yeah, I still have goals. I still want to do. I've done two exhibitions. I participated one back in early 2000 during NBA All-Star Weekend in Philadelphia, and I worked with an organization called IAM, International Association of African American Music, and they put on an exhibit with 6 photographers, and we traveled to Philly, Washington, did a couple of cities, and that was fun. And then in 2005, I had an exhibit at the ArcLight Cinema in Hollywood. It was up for Black Music Month for February. I'm sorry, it was up for June for Black Music Month. And really nice, and people are saying, okay, when's your next one? When's your next one? So I do plan on participating in a couple of exhibits, and as soon as we're all fully back and everything is fully operational. But one may be coming up in September, October. It's in discussion right now, but it's not finalized. So,
what is something that you would like to say to the digital media community about photography and videography?
well, I think that to the social media world, to the digital world, I would say, we're in a technical world where right now I'm being recorded on professional cameras, but we also have phones that are turning semi-professional, but they're only turning semi-professional because we're watching a medium where an image is coming across your phone this size, whereas opposed to when, like say if you do a photo shoot and you're using, medium format, or you're using, full frame cameras, most likely your picture is going to be in a magazine, which is going to be about this big. So that quality is important. But when you're looking at social media and you're looking at a frame this big or this big, and that image is beautiful, and people are using camera phones to capture those images, you're okay. But if you take one of those images and you go like this on your phone, you can already see the pixelization of the image. So I suggest to the social media world, to the talent, to the models, you may want to really, if the quality of your picture is important, you should look into contracting a photographer to shoot your content, or you should contact a videographer to shoot your content, as opposed to doing everything on your phone. because at the end of the day, that content only looks good on your phone. And if you ever want to showcase your stuff in another medium, in a future medium, blown up big, those pictures are going to be really distorted. So, you know, I know a lot of times people are only thinking about the moment. You know, right now, my social media is me right now looking at my camera. And, but you may want to think about your future. And if you are considering having good longevity in your future, then you should really have quality images. And you should hire a photographer that can shoot professional images, or hire a videographer that can shoot professional content.
Man, I'm so excited to have you here. Tell the people where they can find you at.
Oh, I'm Arnold Shoots on Instagram. Arnold Shoots on Instagram. I haven't done TikTok. I might be doing an OnlyFans, but the OnlyFans will be pictures only, not pictures of me, but pictures of my work. I do have an Arnold Shoots at OnlyFans, but I haven't uploaded anything yet, but probably in the next couple of weeks.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Arnold Shoots on OnlyFans, but Arnold Shoots on Instagram.
All right. I appreciate your time, your energy, your honesty, your friendship over the years. And thank you for being a guest on my show.
Thank you, man. We down for life. You already know, Christopher.
You already know.
know.
All right, man.
Peace.
Peace, y'all.
Peace. Deuces.